Hello again everyone and welcome back to the Underground. This is the Until update for June 8th through the 13th, 2025. And yes, that is indeed correct. I am recording this brief a day early, just because I want to maintain as much flexibility as possible for tomorrow's protest events. So, many of you may not know, but these Intel updates, they may only be 20 or 40 minutes long, but it takes me about 6 to 8 hours to produce each one of these. So, building slides is not quick, editing things is not quick, exporting the files, which ties up my computer, is not fast either. So, doing things a day early, I wanted to kind of get ahead of the curve and just maintain as much flexibility as possible. So, let's get right to it. One would be hard-pressed to find a more busy week than the one we have just had. On the home front throughout Western civilization, riots continue, both here in the homeland of the United States as well as with our friends across the pond in Northern Ireland. Here at home, the Los Angeles riots have spread to most major cities as one might expect, sort of in a repeat as before. However, it's a much different dynamic, which we'll get into. Over in Northern Ireland, an entirely different set of rioting is underway for very different reasons, so we'll also get into that a little bit later. And as we all know from the news overnight, it would appear that war with Iran has indeed begun. At the moment that I am recording this, the strikes are still ongoing, so this is definitely not a one-and-done thing. This appears to be, at the moment, a more protracted conflict. However, the fog of war is indeed thick, so we are going to have to do a little bit more digging and spend a little bit more time doing research to determine exactly what is going on. But it would seem that Israel has indeed kicked off war with Iran by conducting a first strike on most of their nuclear facilities, a lot of their air defenses, things like that. So that's the wave-top level of what's been going on this week. We'll have to get into the weeds of a lot of these details later on when I have some more time. But when it comes to strategic movement, this of course is now a stale slide. I'm sorry I have not had time to update this. With regards to U.S. Navy ship movement, things are pretty much status quo. All these carriers are still in the general vicinity. We've not deployed anything new as far as I know, at least nothing for a major deployment. So Navy-wise, the U.S. military is just kind of status quo. The thing that I need to update is aircraft. So if the United States is going to be conducting large-scale evacuations from the Middle East, as they have been doing mostly via commercial aviation, so something that we can't really track, right? But if we're going to expect a more direct military involvement from the United States in the Middle East, we're going to start to see a little bit more traffic increasing. Just to address what everyone's probably going to ask, Diego Garcia, I don't know if the bombers at Diego Garcia participated in the strikes in Iran just yet. They may in the future. They're certainly there and they're within range. Same with the B-52s that are forward deployed to Qatar. So again, aircraft are kind of the big deal. The problem with aircraft is that they're hard to see on satellite because they fly around faster than the satellite can get an image of them, right? So unless they're parked on the ground for a few days in a row, we're not going to get an image of them. And a lot of times they're not going to be very publicly available, at least their position, right? So anyway, more updates to come on this later on. It's been complicated by the fact that the Army's birthday is Saturday. So for those who, just to digress a bit, the reason why it's been hard to track military movements this week is because the U.S. Army has been planning this 250th anniversary parade and events and things like that around the country. They've been planning this for, probably about 10 years now. So it's been a pretty substantial planning effort. So when you see a lot of tanks on trains moving around the United States this week, maybe that was a good way of moving resources around without arising much suspicion. But either way, we'll avoid the rabbit hole on that for now and just say that I need to update all the aircraft and get a better picture of what's going on with strategic aviation throughout the Middle East, because once Israel starts running low on bombs, or once they start coming up against targets like deep hardened storage that they just don't have any aircraft capable of carrying the munitions needed, we're probably going to start seeing the United States get more directly involved. I know that may be a controversial statement, but we have to, maintain that possibility. So far, the White House has not been very shying away from this conflict. As a matter of fact, the White House has wholeheartedly endorsed what is going on and is most certainly supportive in every possible conceivable way to what's going on right now. So, like it or not, I'm going to kind of sidestep the politics on that for now because a lot of people are very angry. But this is the situation that we're looking at. So I'm looking at the issues that I can make some sort of difference with, and that includes keeping an eye on strategic movement around the region. Now, for strategic movement around the United States, as we can see from this week's Kinetic Activity Tracker updates, it's been very busy. Please forgive me if I have fallen behind in my ability to update the Kinetic Activity Tracker as fast as humanly possible, but these are the pucks that I have on the map right now. Of course, there have been riots in pretty much every major and even medium-sized American city. The issue with this, and which is why I have put a geospatial component on my tip lines, is that I cannot put it on the map unless I know where it is, and someone sending me a video that says, oh, look, this riot's going on in, like, Denver. Well, I have to spend a lot of time georeferencing that and geolocating that, and unfortunately, if you're sending me thousands of videos, this takes a little bit of time, so just give me a little bit more time to go through these, and yeah, so it's a pretty busy week. It's alright, we'll get through it, but let's go ahead and jump over to the interactive map, the ArcGIS maps, and I will show you what I've been tracking this week, as well as what I'm tracking for this weekend. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are on the Common Intelligence Picture Map. This is the ArcGIS product that I've been making and updating for a while now. I know that many of you may not understand why I have done things this way using ArcGIS. It's a little complicated, it's a little clunky. Well, we'll see in just a moment, because right now we are starting to get into the realm of big data. So, let's jump right into the city of Los Angeles and see what's going on here. Now, as one might imagine, the city in general has been rather chaotic over the past week or so, with multiple kinetic activities occurring around the city. Zooming into where all of the conflicts started, we can see that the cluster of federal buildings in the city center here has really been the place where most of the kinetic activity has been centered. From there, once night fell on that first day, most of the rioting broke out to the southwest here in really just the kind of commercial district. So a lot of stores down here along Broadway were looted fairly effectively that first night, as well as some other spot places around the city center. There were also roving bands of rioters moving around, which has been something that's been hard to track, obviously, because they're moving, but Figueroa has been a very hotbed for groups coming back and forth, and that appears to continue throughout the week. After the first few days of rioting and after things got kind of out of control, Los Angeles implemented a curfew for this blue zone here. It is most certainly not that big of an area, but it does encompass a lot of the areas where looting was reported. Of course, this area in the city center is not the only place host to looting and rioting. There have been spot riots popping up all over the city due to this crisis. And a lot of the kinetic activity that has not been covered super well by the media has occurred down here in Compton, which is something that one might expect. This place is normally very kinetic on an average day, right? But here at the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic, there has been a series of riots. Now, this originally started at the Home Depot across the way here, but of course, this is Compton, right? So this is a very, very kinetic area normally. So this is the place where we have seen a few vehicles try to ram a police line before getting engaged with less lethal munitions, which somehow got them to stop. This is the same area where that viral video came out regarding someone pulling a pistol and trying to shoot at the police line. It's still kind of unclear as to whether or not that individual actually did engage that police line with small arms, but something to be mindful of either way. So just because the media is focusing on the downtown area does not mean that little spot riots and very kinetic situations are not popping up around the city. There have also been a lot of routine crime increases in various places because everyone knows that the LAPD and LA County Sheriff is here for the most part. So apart from the actual riots, we're starting to see demonstrators, protesters, general criminals learning quite a bit. So they are implementing a lot of intelligence collection. They are communicating. They're moving around. They're being very, very dynamic with their operations. Of course, these guys are not exactly SEAL Team 6 here, but they are starting to learn, and they're starting to put a lot of the knowledge that they have gained from the George Floyd riots into practice. For instance, I didn't want to mention this for obvious reasons, but now that the cat's out of the bag, there is a hotel here in Whittier, the Doubletree, which is allegedly, or at least the rioters, seemed fairly convinced that a lot of feds are staying here, that ICE agents and a lot of people who have been flown in to handle the LA riots, they're located here at this hotel. Well, what have they done? Of course, they have started rioting outside the hotel and, doing laps around the hotel to make sure nobody can get any sleep. I don't know if that's an effective tactic. It doesn't seem to be working super well, and my guess is the people who are staying in this hotel are probably not there anymore. However, you can see that they're definitely trying to target the logistics of the efforts to regain control of the city. So Los Angeles has been the most lawless region over the past few days. It's not nearly as bad as the George Floyd riots, but considering that this is more of a cartel influenced kind of thing, it's hard to talk about because you can't really know for sure how much the cartels are driving this sort of thing. We do know that the narco state of Mexico, the Mexican government, is like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, kind of endorsing this behavior from statements by official, government agents, right, and government officials. So we know that there's influence there. I don't know how much is directed. I know that there will be a lot of people quick to jump and say, look, the cartels are running this 100%, and this is more of a military operation than a policing operation. I don't know about that for sure, but I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of treat it like that until we have more information, especially considering that we're starting to see these riots pop up in a lot of other places. Providence, New York City, Washington, D.C., massive events planned, Chicago and Austin, right? Also Dallas as well, Denver, Salt Lake City, all of these places. I'm still catching up, of course, but a lot of these places have seen very, very kinetic riots over the past few days. Now that we're still here on the map, let's go ahead and talk about the future for a moment, namely what everyone is probably here for, which are the protests that are planned for the United States for tomorrow. Many of you already know and have probably already seen on places like Twitter my GIS layer. This is a KMZ that I have created that details all of the No Kings protests that are planned for Saturday, June 14th, as best I could find. Please forgive me if a lot of these icons are not in the right spot. As anyone who knows data analysis knows, if you have garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. And unfortunately, the event planners of these No Kings protests, as well as mobilize.us, another protest tracking website, a lot of the people who plan these events put garbage in. So they either get the address wrong of where the protest is planned, they put the wrong zip code, or in many cases they don't even tell you where the event is at. So they're just going to say, like, in Boise or something like that. So it's not going to give you an exact street address or like a city park name. What I would personally do is, if you are so inclined to zoom in on this map, which you can certainly do yourself, if you wanted to zoom in on this map and check out the places near you where a mass protest is planned, go ahead and cross-reference that with either the No Kings website itself. Using a VPN would be probably a good idea. But you can cross-reference that with some of the data on their website, because they are still updating this stuff. Of course, these people are very well funded. They're funded by the billionaire heiress from the Walmart Corporation, Cindy Walton. So they obviously have a bigger budget than me. I'm just some guy on the internet. So their ability to consistently add to these points, they've probably got a whole team of a dozen people creating these things. So either way, just be advised, this data set is flawed, but it's the best we've got for now, and time is of the essence, right? Now, regarding the slight bit of panic that might appear when you realize that there are this many protests planned for tomorrow, personally, just to get this right out the window, I don't think that all of these are going to go ahead. I think that there's a large information operation. Some of you may call this a PSYOP. I don't think that all of these are going to go ahead. I think that what they did is they picked a few areas where they know that there isn't going to be anybody protesting, and they put a protest there to stoke fear, to make it look like their movement is bigger than it is. It's very, very cheap to go on a website. It's very, very cheap to drop a point on a map, right, and make it look like there's a protest scheduled for a certain location, when in actuality, nobody's actually signed up for it, or nobody's actually planning to be there. So that's something to keep in mind. When it comes to risk assessment, we also have to consider the other side of the coin, right? Which is that a lot of protesters maybe bust in from certain areas to places where there historically haven't been any protests at all. So either way, in terms of preparing for this, I think it would probably be wise just to be aware, right? Same as always, there's no need to panic or freak out over anything, even something as potentially widespread as this. Just be careful. Don't take any risks that you don't have to take, and just be mindful. So these are the protests that are scheduled for tomorrow, and this I will obviously remove this layer once the protests are over, and I'll start creating a different data set. But I just wanted to make everyone aware who is following my mapping projects. This is not the only map I have. I have another map, which is for tracking the border crisis situation. And because these events are very linked, I would strongly encourage you to check out my other map as well if you are interested. And here's why. So what I have quietly been doing over the past few months is going through and finding all of the sites, locations, NGOs, government agencies, LLCs, companies, charities, whatever. I've been trying to find all of the locations that openly advertise that they are helping and assisting in immigration efforts around the United States. And I have put them on the map. And here's what that looks like. So let me go ahead and turn off the protests tracker so we can clean our map up a little bit. And let me turn on immigration logistics. Now this is going to take a minute to load here, which is why I don't have it on this map. But so as we can see here, there are a lot of sites around the United States that are very pro-immigration, very helpful towards immigration efforts. So if we were to just kind of scroll in here to just the Los Angeles area alone, we can see how many areas are providing aid to immigration efforts. And you can see some of these icons are stacked nearly on top of each other, right? I have gone through and hand input every single one of these. I'm currently investigating every single one of these sites, and if you wish, you can click on every one of these locations. You can also tap it if you're on your phone, if it loads on your phone, and you can see all of the research, street address, everything. So of course, this is a very heavily biased data set if you use it incorrectly and you don't understand the underlying priors, I guess is the most accurate way to say it. Bottom line, just because there is a point on the map does not mean that these agencies or organizations are guilty of illegal immigration. Many of you will probably click around the map and become quite upset to discern that a lot of institutions, which you may even be a member of yourself, is complicit in immigration efforts. Now, of course, look at the icons. These are yellow diamonds with a dashed outline depicting a suspected safe house. So it is unfortunate, and I wish it was not so. I wish the data did not indicate what it indicates. However, considering the severity of the immigration crisis and the rapidly developing rioting situation around the country, we have to look at the raw data, okay? And that's what this is. This is raw data. You can form your own conclusions as you wish, but that's why I wanted to create this product, and that's why this is on a separate map than the Kinetic activity tracker, because this data set is getting pretty big. You can see that there are quite a few safe houses around the United States. You can even see down here in Mexico and in Central America, I have plotted all of the sites, all of the locations that I could find where they're helping move illegals into the United States. And you can see that, I mean, zooming into some of these areas, it's pretty substantial. I mean, of course, Washington, D.C. is going to have quite a few. New York City is like, I mean, good grief. If we wait for the map to load here, even on my computer, it's kind of slow because we're talking with a lot of data here. I mean, look at this. These are all the charities that are helping immigrants. And, you know, I know that that's maybe, I know that a lot of people may disagree with my focus on this sort of thing, but as an investigator, you have to look at these sorts of things, and almost all of these, if I can click one here and get it to show up, almost all of these, let me see here, of course, there we go, CUNY, Citizenship Now. These are industrial efforts to help immigrants get citizenship. Most of these places are either charities or attorneys, and a lot of these are very much openly assisting with the illegal immigration situation. This does not mean that all of these sites that I've found are assisting in illegal immigration. It does not mean that they're all nefarious and hiding cartel members and helping the cartel conduct operations in the United States, but it doesn't mean that we have to check, right? So it's something to be aware of, because I would be willing to bet that a lot of people, unless you put it on a map, a lot of people are not going to understand the level of severity that we're dealing with here. And I just wanted to kind of convey that and use data to tell the story. So that's exactly what I've done. And if I can turn on the planned protests for tomorrow on top of this one, if I can load this without my web browser crashing, we can see that we may be in a bit of a pickle here. So, big data is hard for people to wrap their minds around unless you visualize it, and I hope that this visualizes, if nothing else, I hope it visualizes the level of the work ahead. So, this is going to be a very contentious topic over the next few years. The problem is a lot bigger than I think a lot of people originally thought it was, and we're just going to have to do the best we can. Let me go ahead and turn these layers off again. Again, if you want to see the immigration logistics layer, I'm not going to publish on this map. The immigration logistics layer will be on the other map, the U.S.-Mexico border crisis SIP, which is here. This contains a lot more stuff like IEDs and drone sightings and all kinds of kinetic activities here. But I wish I could load them on the same map. But my goal here is to allow people to access this on their phones as best they can. And this map is already chugging pretty hard with this protest KMZ. So I'm just going to leave this here for now. In the next few days, probably even as you guys are watching this, I will have cleaned things up and made it a little bit more professional. But for now, I just wanted to explain a little bit. This is why I went with the ArcGIS model, so that I can process potentially tens of thousands of points all at once and do it as easily as possible for me on my end and as easily as possible for you guys to consume it on your end. Before we close out today back in the United States, I also wanted to point out what's going on in Europe and Northern Ireland. And I wanted to give a brief shout out and a thank you to my friend Wallace for helping me identify some of the places where rioting is going on in the Northern Ireland area. I don't have a very good eye on Europe, so I very much appreciate all of you who are generally concerned with what's going on in Europe. And yeah, it's a fairly kinetic area. Northern Ireland has always been fairly kinetic, but I don't think that the situation was going to result in a peaceful outcome based on the amount of migrant centers which have been established here in Northern Ireland. Many could say that this was coming for a long time, but this is going to cause problems for locals who are trying to just kind of go about their day. So something to be mindful of. Things are getting pretty hot in Northern Ireland, as we might expect, as well as around Europe itself. So hopefully things will stay peaceful. Hopefully things will calm down and we won't have as many things to track as I think we may this summer. But either way, we're prepared, we're ready. The products are here, the infrastructure's here to help us track some of these things, and we'll just do the best we can. That's all I have for the SIP map today. I will, of course, be updating all the places that were struck in Iran. I need to figure out a better way of categorizing some of this data with regards to foreign conflicts. But I think it's interesting and important for posterity to note, but either way, we'll see. I'll figure something out. So let's jump back to the slides and wrap things up for today. All right, before we ended today, I wanted to provide a brief update on the situation in Washington State with regards to the search for the fugitive Travis Decker. The search for this individual does continue. However, the search has started to shift into more of a long-term effort. Obviously, we know the story. If a person can evade capture for 48 hours, they're usually going to evade capture for a long period of time, and if they are to be picked up, they will be picked up months later. The reason that I wanted to focus on this story is because, despite all of the horrible things going on around the world, this is a task that we have the ability to complete. We may not be able to do anything about war kicking off in the Middle East, but we can certainly nab this guy. So the update is that someone a few days ago received a tip from a local hiker, so a prepared citizen, right? Who saw a lone hiker who appeared to be not really there for hiking, as they were unprepared, didn't appear to be acting normally near the Kolchak Lake, and according to the individual's testimony, the person, when a helicopter passed over, they darted, right? So obviously this is a pretty big indicator for searchers and authorities looking to apprehend this individual in the local area. So they pulled out all the stops, they got the canine teams on the area, and they tracked someone to the area of Ingalls Creek Trailhead on Highway 97. So this individual appears to be still in the local area. I don't know what's going on with that. Someone who's got the training this guy would have had would know all of the classic ways of evading detection, right? But also someone who's going to commit this level of atrocious crime is probably not going to be in a mental state that is productive. So either way, I wanted to focus on something because we have a chance here to actually get a good result to this. There will be no happy ending, unfortunately, due to the nature of this story, but maybe we can get a little bit of closure for the family. So please be on the lookout if you are in the area. Local authorities are winding down the search, and that tends to be, just like every search and rescue guy knows, the very minute that you decide to wrap things up for the day and head back to the barn, right? The very minute you decide to do that, just wait 10 more minutes. Just give it 10 more minutes and you will get a pretty big clue, and that appears to be the case here. Of course, this is a very expensive search. They've already spent millions of dollars worth of fuel and maintenance hours trying to get this guy just from an aviation aspect alone. However, we focus on the tasks that we can work. We work on the things that we have the ability to actually do good on, and I think this is one of those things. So if you're in the Washington area, in the Leavenworth area specifically, please be on the lookout for this guy. So that's pretty much all I have for today. Let's roll things up with the intercepted GhostNet reports, and in classic fashion, just like last week, I sent out the notice, the reminder for the GhostNet window hit, and Israel attacked Iran. So that was the topic of conversation for the most part this week. But I think it's pretty neat that we can, in an off-grid manner, communicate and exchange information around the world. Of course, radio is not the only solution, but it is a pretty big piece of the puzzle, and one of the things that's been missing, which is why the GhostNet was created, was this nature of more strategic radio, right? Something that's not just a bow thing, that you can hold in your hand and talk to your neighbor, a half mile away. Those kinds of radios and that kind of perspective is 100% necessary, right? It very much is. But also necessary is the ability to communicate with people over a large distance without using infrastructure or any kind of internet or cellular connection. So it's a very, very niche role, but I think it's filling that role very well, and I think that it's working pretty good. So improvements will be made. They have been made over time, and I think that right now it's a pretty good thing, but we're not going to stop making the improvements, and we're going to keep pushing forward and doing the best we can. So that's pretty good to see. Really appreciate all of you for contributing to the GhostNet, and I hope that we can make it better in due time. Closing on a brief admin note, I'm going to try to maintain as much flexibility, like I said in the beginning, for reports this week, which is why I'm trying to edit and get this one out today so that I can have some time tomorrow to kind of sit down and track these protests. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that having the flexibility to do what I can is going to be necessary. For the most part, the mapping products are probably going to get a little bit sloppy. I'm afraid that's just the way that it is. Remember what I said during the battle tracking videos that I did and the Intel shop videos that I did. You can either have professional or fast. You're not going to have both. So please forgive me if some of these mapping products are a little bit sloppy. Over the next couple of days, I'm trying to upgrade and update things. I am managing many lines of effort on my end, so I'm going to try to be updating the Kinetic activity tracker. I'm going to be dropping individual KMZs on the map as well, so I know this gets way down into the weeds, but I'm tracking some of the more real-time instances and incidents in ATAC, or more specifically WinTAC. So you're going to see some content being dragged over from what I'm working on WinTAC to the ArcGIS stuff. So it's going to be a little messy. It's going to be all right, though. We're going to make the best we can of it, and we'll see if we can't do the best we can. So I don't know what's going to happen, but that's why we do these sorts of things, right? We do it because of the uncertainty, and we want to make sure that everybody is as safe as they possibly can be, and that they have the tools they need to succeed and, remain pretty good in their local area. So thank you guys for all of your support. Hopefully we have a nice calm day tomorrow. If not, it's okay. We'll do what we can. May push out a wire report or two. Who knows? I know that a lot of us are hoping for this to be a giant pile of nothing, but just in case it isn't, we'll be here, and I'll have the flexibility to write and report and inform and share and hopefully do what I can from my small wheelhouse to help everybody stay informed as to what's going on. So thank you guys all again, and I will see you next time. And as always, fight in the shade.